you here. Okay, so uh, rare 17th century book on alien life discovered. And this was pretty cool. This didn't. I mean, this slipped past me back in May. I didn't catch this, but I'll always jump on aliens when I see them because uh, that's really where Cryptic Corner started was with aliens. So I know it did lean more heavily into cryptozoology, but I really aliens have always been a cornerstone. And to find a book like this written in the 17th century, 1698, that's wild to think that they were exploring the ideas of extraterrestrial life all the way back then. Let's read what it has to say. This is in unexplainedmysteries.com. And we'll check out the source too because it's got some better images. But I'm going to read what this has to say first. All right. Published in 1698, the book offers a unique look into how people from the time perceived the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Discovered by book valuer Jim Spencer at an antique valuation event in, say this word for me, Gloucester. Is that right? I don't know. England. I'm going to say it like an American, call it Gloucester or something like that, and make everybody mad. The book was by Christian Huygens and explores the possible existence of extraterrestrial entities while, where was I? So I lost my place. Just a second. Extraterrestrial entities while posing the question of why God would have created other planets solely for us to look at. Yeah, I lost the screen, not my place in this little paragraph. But yeah, anyway. Good morning, Cadence. Gloucester. Yeah. So many letters for something that can be written with Gloucester. Yes. Uh, the its title, "The Celestial World Discovered," or "Conjecture Concerning the Inhabitants, Plants, and Products of the World in the Planets," is certainly a mouthful. Many of the ideas and conclusion Huggins reaches in the book seem a bit strange by today's standards. However, they are consistent with the science of the time. He speculates. I keep wanting to put this in past tense, but that's because it's from 1698. He speculated that intelligent aliens must have hands like ours due to their convenience, and that they must also have human like feet unless they have developed the ability to fly. He also suggested that these beings are likely to pursue many of the same sports and interests that we do, such as astronomy, sailing, and listening to music, but that they are also likely to be afflicted with poverty, war, and other misfortunes because it is what promotes invention and progress. The book, which is to be sold at auction, is expected to fetch up to $4,000. It's fascinating to think who turned these pages in 1698, what they must have felt when reading these descriptions of life on Jupiter or Saturn before gazing up at the night sky, like said Spencer. Yeah, it's a pretty wild concept to think that because they didn't have any idea of what like an ancient biosphere would be like, right? They didn't have any preconception that there would be different gravitational forces, that there would be different solar radiation levels, that there would be different soil compositions, that there would be different gas compositions of the atmosphere, different, of course, air pressure levels, along with the gravity fluctuations during orbit. in these different levels and in the composition and where they lie in the biosphere. And I say biosphere loosely because I don't think that any of the planets that they're talking about had actual life on them at that time. I mean, if you think that Jupiter or Saturn had life on it in 1698, that's really cool, and I'd like to hear about it. But I don't think that looking now of what we know about the planets that they did, but they didn't know that back then. They didn't know that these heavenly bodies had all these variations and other compositional issues for supporting life that would make life necessitate a very different biology in order to survive in environments like Jupiter has incredible gravity. Something that lives on Jupiter would need to be very rigid. The most of our organisms that are able to stand upright do so with calcium-based structures, because calcium is easy for us to absorb into our body and then for our body to convert into things like bones and teeth and such. So Jupiter would need a much more you'd need a much more rigid skeleton than I don't think we ever would have stopped what the trilobites were doing. I don't think anything. I think things like a trilobite would be more probable than something with hands and feet or anything that flies on Jupiter. Something that sits really low to the ground, has a really dense structure to its exoskeleton is what I would anticipate. Something on Jupiter would have due to the crushing pressures. Also, gas exchange is going to be an issue. There's going to have to be some sort of innovation in the way that the organisms breathed and things like that that we haven't had here on Earth. There's been a lot of different structures for absorbing gas from the environment to use in keeping your biology functioning. We got spiracles, which are on the abdomen of arthropods, so completely separate from like their mouths and things. So that's an advantage that they have over us. That they don't have to worry about continuing their gas exchange while they're consuming food. So even on Earth, there's some variety of ways in order to absorb gas from the environment to keep things pumping. And I'm not saying that can't exist on Jupiter, or that, hell, I wouldn't even say that I wouldn't go as far as to say that that's never existed on Jupiter. We haven't been able to do much fossil digs on Jupiter. I don't suspect it, but I wouldn't reject it whole cloth to think that there were that other planets in our solar system also were able to support life in some way, shape, or form. We have obviously what we call the Goldilocks zones around stars. Based on whatever kind of star it is, that zone's going to be bigger or smaller. But the planets that fall into that zone here on Earth aren't always the ones that have been in that zone in the past. Our solar system is billions of years old and has expanded as it grew. As it came to its current resting place is not, and we can even call where it's at now a resting place, because eventually it's going to. The sun's probably going to expand out and consume at least the inner planets way before everything drifts away. But I think that some of the maybe Neptune could escape the expanding sun. Now I'm on a tangent. Sorry, everybody. Let me get back to the book because this is just what they knew about science back in those days, and they thought they thought about religion and creation and such. Because as you can see, why would God have created other planets? It's the presupposition that that the Christian God exists. Let's have a look at the book itself. Rare book predicting alien life discovered in Cotswold. It gives us basically the same little blurb here. It's almost comical. The book's lengthy title. hear celestial worlds. I don't know. I would have just called it celestial worlds. That kind of works for me. And that they must have hands and feet. And what we could invent or imagine that could be so exactly accommodating to all the designs used, hands and feet, shall we give them an elephant's proboscis? I think we should. I think we should definitely give them an elephant's proboscis. Let's do that. And can they get like jellyfish feeding tentacles too, or maybe like a cephalopod? Yeah, there's lots of ideas we can go with other than human-like hands to manipulate their environment. Spiders, for instance, just they manipulate their environment masterfully with the tips of their little legs. With just 8 legs, they are much better hand-eye coordination than a human could hope for, and much faster about it too. You ever watched a spider wrap up a fly? You know what I'm talking about. They don't mess around with that. They're boom, 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 boom. So there are multiple ways besides human hands that we could predict that aliens would have, or an alien organism would have, to manipulate its environment. He also suggests that celestial beings must have feet. We went over that, unless they can fly. Some planets, maybe, that they could. We have a density, I think, lower than what we have here on Earth, or not density, a gravitational force. But you can't just say gravitational force is going to be the only factor, because of the composition of the atmosphere. It's also going to come into play, because you're going to have the heavier elements in the atmosphere down low. If you could have really light gravity, but if you have a really dense gas in the lower levels of your atmosphere, that's still going to cause issues for trying to fly and move around. Hey, show me Sasquatch. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Yeah, it has maps. We're gonna get down to this stuff. Don't worry. I'm trying to string it along a little bit. The writer believes aliens enjoyed astronomy and observation, sailed boats, and listened to music, but also suffered misfortunes of war, affliction, poverty. Yeah, we saw that. There's a good, it's pretty good depiction of Saturn and Jupiter, all things considered, about when this was written. That they were able to give us those. It's only 162 very tiny pages. Could probably read it in an hour or so. Yeah, Cadence is all over this. I'm glad this is something we can nerd about together, Cadence. The book is considered such a rare find that it will have a guide price of £2,000 to £3,000 when it goes on auction, which is the $4,000 that was mentioned earlier. Mr. Spencer said it's fascinating to think who turned. We already read that. This is, I'm impressed actually with this diagram for being from 1698. They even have, let's see, we have Saturnus, Julius Luna. So are we looking at the moons of Saturn too? I don't know how many moons they knew about of Saturn in 1698, but that they appeared in this book is wonderful. The book attempts to describe how intelligent alien life on other planets might look like, especially on Jupiter and Saturn. Which is funny because it was Venus and Mars that became the main focus of alien life later on, after Enlightenment, after the Age of Enlightenment. They really started. First, it was Venus. Venus had a lot of fiction, and then, of course, The Martian took over later, especially in like the late Victorian era. Think of like Orson Welles and War of the Worlds. Also, Jules Verne, ideas like that, where the idea of Martian life became kind of the focus. Because at that time, the Goldilocks zone situation was not necessarily understood as well as it is today. Because yeah, there has to be liquid. Well, for the life that we for life as we know it needs liquid water. So, but that's not to say that that's always the case. Just from what we understand about how life can exist, that we may discover new things about it. The book valuer said, flicking through the pages gives a curious feel. I wouldn't flick through these pages. I would be very gentle. Gave us curious feel due to the subject matter belonging to the future or science fiction, yet the writer is speaking to us from the past. I found myself realizing that we've since explored not only more of space, but more of our own planet. He said the author ruled out the possibility of much larger animals than those currently existing on Earth because it was written before humans knew about dinosaurs. I think the subject matter is compelling because it makes us chuckle at what we didn't know while staring up at the heavens and realizing it's still a mystery, Mr. Spencer said. The book was listed for sale on the 5th of July in Hanson Library auction in Bishton Hall in Staffordshire. Uh, yeah, so that's this pretty wild book. Pretty wild book that they've discovered. That's our cryptic corner talking about the celestial world, a book describing what alien life might have looked like. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this segment of Cryptic Corner. If you have any thoughts on this book or any other subjects that you'd like to suggest that we cover in Cryptic Corner, you definitely feel free to leave them in the comments below. Uh, if you're tuning in on Friday night, thank you for stopping by. Remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time.